Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to look at Liquibase plus Spring Boot. It is quite cool, but what is Liquibase and how do we use it? Liquibase is something that will actually help you create changes to your database. This is actually a change management system for your database, and you can actually it does an integration for Spring Boot, which makes it very easy to use Liquibase. This means that when your application starts up, then Liquibase will actually be called, and if there's any scripts that need to be called on your database, then those scripts will automatically be applied before Spring Boot application actually starts up. So it's a bit like with JPA. You can actually say that you want to drop and recreate the whole DLL. It's kind of the same, but you have much more control over what's going on with Liquibase, and it's also very good for being placed on environments, because then Liquibase will keep track of which scripts has already been run on these environments, and this means that you will not lose your data when a new version comes to your test environment. Then it will not just totally scratch your database on your test environment and then recreate everything again right there. It will actually will check which script has already run, then will actually run the scripts that it hasn't run yet, and that means that then you can actually make minor increments and minor changes to the database without having any problems. If you run more than one instance of your application, then this is also handled by Liquibase. They will actually make sure that race conditions are taken care of by actually locking the Liquibase has its own tables, and then it will then lock its own tables when it's actually performing and executing the scripts that you define. First of all, you have to use a version that is below 4.9 right now. That's because in Liquibase 4.9, some smart guy actually found out that it was a bit insecure, that there are some XML specifications that are being run and used. If they're used over the line, over the internet, then that can actually be an insecurity. That could be a problem with the security, because you don't know what you get from the internet. So that's why per default you're not allowed to actually to download those. And there's not a Spring Boot configuration yet. I saw there was a week ago. There was actually a case opened at Liquibase where they are where this problem is mentioned, and I think they will at some point in the future they will create a setting so you can actually download those XML files that are needed, and then you can just place them in the resource folder yourself, or you can turn off the security check and just say it's okay that I run unsecure. This is just for my own demo project purpose, or this is just for playing around with it and trying out what is happening when I use Liquibase. But for now, just add version 4.8.0 right here. I've created this project by pressing File, New Project right here. I've chosen Spring Initializer. I've chosen Maven this time. Java 17, yes, that's fine. It's actually JPA 18 right now. I'm using right now. I'm running on a pure Windows setup right now because it's faster. I've actually experienced a lot of problems with WSL and IntelliJ lately. It has become very, very slow. So I have all my projects and also my JDK on my Windows instance, not on my WSL Windows subsystem for Linux. And I would also recommend you to do the same. But if you can make it run, and if you can make it run smoothly on with WSL, then fine. That's good. I think also when the next version of IntelliJ will be released, then I'll try again to see how it runs on WSL. But for now, I've been disappointed, so I'm running on the pure Windows instance right here. So I added Lombok, I added Spring Web like this, so I could create some REST interfaces. Then I added Liquibase, because you can actually take it from the shelf. It's actually a shelf integration. It means I can just tick this one off right here, and then I can press create, and then I get my. I actually also added some more. I added H2 because I want to play around with databases, of course. That's why we do all this thing. So I added H2 database. This means every time I start up my Spring Boot application, then a new H2 database, that's a memory database, it will be spun up, and then every time I stop my Spring Boot application, the H2 database will be stopped. Then I also added Spring Data JPA. This one I also added this, and then I press create, and then I got this project that I have right here. I'll place a link as usual to my GitHub account where you can get this code afterwards if you're interested. and then you will end up with this pump file right here, and then you have to add this yourself manually. Add version 4.8.0. It just needs to be lower than 4.9, and at some point, of course, Liquibase will fix this, I think, by giving us a setting in our Spring Boot application properties file that we can use. But right now, there was none at the when I examined this for a couple of weeks ago. Then there was no solution to this except for the downgrading the Liquibase core dependency to 4.8 or something that is before 4.9. Okay, so here we have the application as usual. We have a main folder as usual. I have a spaceship, so that means that I have a spaceship entity right here I'm playing around with. So I want to have a table that is named spaceship like this, and I want to have a type. I want to have a captain. And I actually also want to have a fuel type. I forgot that actually. Okay. It's fuel like this. So I want to have a fuel percentage as a whole number. Yeah, then I have created a repository, and if you are in any doubt on which repository you should choose, and to extend with this interface right here, always extend the JPA repository. I've also some people they also extend the CRUD repository, CRUD repository. What you get with the JPA repository is that you actually get the possibility to flush your data if you want to. You can see this JPA right here. There's a flush. And there's also a batch delete we will also get, I think. Yes, delete and batch, this one. Okay, it's actually deprecated. No, delete all in batch, it's not deprecated right here. So you can actually delete a lot of entities and delete a lot of rows at the same time without having to write your own JQL. And that's actually what I did nowadays. I just wrote my own JQL so if I had to delete the multiple rows in the table. But they have this one right here. Of course, we should use that instead. Delete all in batch like this. And then we just add a collection with our entities. But that was not what we want to talk about. So let us just go back. So we have our repository right here that extends JPA repository. And here we're using the type spaceship, and long, that is the ID right here. And if you don't know what Spring Data is, then please read up on it or watch my videos. But shortly said, you have these interfaces right here, and the implementation will be automatically written by Spring Boot when you start up the application context. Then, the implementations of these interfaces right here that will be made automatically, actually from the method names and also from the annotations that you create inside this interface right here. So, but we will keep it simple for this. I just want to demonstrate the Liquibase part. So we just need to have an application class right here where I add Spring Boot application. I do not need to add anything with JPA or entity scan or something like that. Those annotations are already located deep inside this at Spring Boot application right here. Component scan, yeah, here it is, and that there should also be something at some point. There should also be something with in old days you had to enable entity scan or something also, but let me just check right here. Spring Boot configuration, component scan, but that's okay. You don't need to do anything else but add Spring Boot application to your class right here, and then it's fine that you have your entity right here. Your table names, if you're using H2 database like I am right now, then your table names will be space_ship. So every time you're using the camel case, every time you go from a lowercase to a uppercase, then you will have an underscore in H2 in your H2 table. Okay, so how does it work? It actually works by you creating a you need to have a changelog master file, which is right here, and the location for that is set in the application properties file. It is set right here, and that is why I also expect that that at some point we will actually have some kind of property right here that says that we can actually accept to use an unsafe XSD files and then just get them from internet, or maybe just an XSD file location for where they're located. I'll show you in just a minute what I'm talking about. But here we have this changelog file, and it's located on the class path. You can of course you can also place it somewhere on your machine, but on a class path, this is a good location for it. And you just write like this: db changelog and then the name of the file, and of course you can name it whatever you want to, and I've placed it under resources, db.changelog, changelog master right here, and here you have some XSD files, and those are the problems. These namespaces, XML namespaces right here, they point to some schema locations out in the world, of course. These ones, this one is the problem. That is one we are using right now, Liquibase, changelog, blah blah blah. And after version 4.8, 4.9 included, 4.9 included, then we will not be able to just get the schema from the internet. We need to be specific if we want to make that unsafe download. We need to say that that's okay, or we can place them locally on our system. If you don't use Spring Boot and if you use Liquibase, the newest versions, then you would not have this issue. It's just with Spring Boot. We have this issue right now. Here I'm saying include all. So this is actually the important line inside this XML file right here. Include all, and then we say the path. This is db changelog, my changelog. So that means that all of the files that I place in this folder right here, all of those files will be included in my Liquibase setup. So this means that when I start up my application, then I will get this changelog applied. Right here, I have something called create table. This is the YAML version, and I would definitely recommend you to use that. When you go to Liquibase's homepage, and if you search on something like, I just had to see what is the syntax for inserting data, then I looked up insert. Then you can actually see, the XML version, you can see the YAML version, you can also see the SQL examples. Do not use SQL, because this means that you have to write database-specific SQL right here. If you use the YAML, then Liquibase will actually convert this into the appropriate SQL for the database that you actually use. So that's just don't use SQL. That's actually the only thing. You can also use JSON if you prefer that. There are some people that really hate YAML because it can be difficult with these indentations to see where the next object starts and where the previous ended. And I totally agree. But YAML is kind of a de facto standard now that also Spring Boot uses the application YAML file also, right? So I don't know, but use JSON or YAML, and then you can copy these examples here and then change it to your use case. What I've done right here, I had to create a table first, so I want to create a table. That is the spaceship right here. I had a column named ID, and and this is a primary key. I can also add constraints, as you can see right here. I can add foreign keys, etc. I can add all the stuff that I usually add. And if there's something that has not been implemented in Liquibase yet, then of course you can create your own SQLs as a last resort. And you can also create these SQLs. So we have one SQL for H2 database, and then you have another SQL for maybe a Postgres database that is running on your test environment or in your production, so that you can actually have different SQL files running for each DBMS. I have an example of this in just a minute, but I'll show you in just a minute. So here we have another column. That's the type of the spaceship that has the text type. That can be a round spaceship. Captain name, the fuel, and that's actually the fuel I forgot to map to my class that I just created the property fuel just a couple of minutes ago when I started this video. You saw that probably. You can rewind and you can see that I forgot to add it. It was not there. So we have fuel percentage, captain, and spaceship type right there. Then we need something else, and this is a bit weird. This is because now if we want to use auto-generating ID facility in JPA, then you need a Hibernate sequence. But you need a sequence with this name right here, Hibernate_sequence, and that is what Spring Boot and JPA will use by default. And this means that you have to create the sequence. That means a number will be taken every time we insert something into the database, and it should be. I can also set the incrementation right here. I can set the schema name. I can set a minimum value, maximum value, a start value for 25 that I can set right here. And spoiler alert, you can actually see right here that I've created a new entity which actually starts with ID 25. But I'll show that also in a couple of minutes. There's a lot of things coming up in a couple of minutes. Let us look at the spaceship. No, that was a spaceship. Let us look at the dummy data. First of all, if you want to have dummy data, don't name it dummy data. Your colleagues will then say, do we need this dummy data? It sounds like it's useless or something like that. Call it default data set. No one can have anything against the default data set. And And again, this data set that you create here, because it's Liquibase, if it ends up in your test environment or in production, then you can just delete the data. Then it will never end up there again, because Liquibase will actually mark that this change actually have been applied to your systems. So if they end up on your other systems, then you can just delete it again, and you will never get this data applied again to your other environments. So it's just a little trick. And one thing I like to do is that when this is generated data, then I like to add them to. Then I like to give them the ID minus something, a negative ID. So this is when I'm creating this data for fun, and this is for test purposes. When I start up my application, then I want there to be some data per default, because then I don't have to go through the tedious process of maybe creating new spaceships before testing if I can maybe change the fuel percentage to 100%. If I want to test that I can fuel up my spaceships, I want some data to work with when I start my application. So this is one row right here. Insert that, and here you can see. Here I have left this right here. So we have a DBMS H2. This means that this row will only be inserted if it's a H2 database. If it's a MySQL database, then this row will not be applied. So you can actually create some conditions like this. Schema name, we need to add that. Table name, that is which table we want to insert the data in. Then we have again, that this is just another row. So this is true. We have two rows here on here, one with ID minus 100 and one with minus 200. And here we have the DBMS settings again. And we have some different captains right here. There's Captain Elon and there's Captain Olga right there. So this means that every time I start my application, then because it's a new H2 database that I start every time, then this data will also be applied every time I start, and also every time I run my tests. So let us dig into tests. This is exactly what I want to look at right now. I have this awesome test right here, which actually tests my repository. I've annotated it with Spring Boot test, and I'm using JUnit 5 on top of that. You can see it has this Jupiter package name, which means Jupiter is the 5th planet in the solar system, and that is why you can always see from the imports whether you're running JUnit 4 or 5. If it does not say Jupiter, then it's 4, and if it says Jupiter, then it's 5. Just a little bonus information right there. And here I am saving my spaceship like this. So I'm creating a new spaceship right here. Now there's an error because I forgot to add some fuel. So now we just added a new property right here. And this is actually quite a bad way to create new spaceships, because as you can see right here, when I add new fields, then I get an error right here. So the way you want to create your entities is actually by adding builder right here. And if you want to avoid errors, that is so. If I want to avoid the problem that I actually just got, then I would say something like this instead. And I would say spaceship. Then I would say builder, and then I would say that I want the type. I want the type to be round like this, and I want the captain to be Mike, and then I will not get an error, because then fuel would just be null and that would be fine, right? So then we'll say fuel, and then 99% like this, and build, and then it's done right there. So let's delete that. So if you use the builder pattern, this is Lombok. It's nothing to do with Liquibase at all. So this is Lombok. If you add builder on top of your classes, then you can do something like this, and then you will actually avoid some problems right here. Round-ish, so this is not totally round, and then we have another captain. This could be Jack. 55% to begin with. We're a bit cheaper there with the fuel. And do we have too many? I need to save, that's why. So I need this part right here. I need this repository, and I need to save my entity right here. So now I have two. So now I'm actually saving two rows into my table right here. One with Captain Mike and one with Captain Jack right there. And then I extract all of my rows right there. I extract all of my spaceships, and then I print them out. This is how you this is instead of a lambda. So this is an expression where you can actually pass on each element to a method. I have another video about that, so go look at that if you want to go look at at lambdas and Java, then you can see something. Then you can see a lot of cool things about how to do stuff like this actually. So here we have for each, and then we are running this. Then we are applying this method to all of the elements inside the result that we actually get out. And the lambda, it is nothing. Just if you don't know what a lambda is, it is an implementation of an interface with exactly one method. So it's not it is not difficult when you first have learned that thing to say. It is an implementation of an interface with exactly one method. Watch my other video about Java and lambdas. Then I assert that now I have one more spaceship than I had before, and actually this was right thing right here is actually to assert 2. So I start with getting out the count, how many spaceships do I have, then I add 2 spaceships, and then I expect there to be 2 extra spaceships compared to what was there before. And I can just press play right here. And now my test is running. Yes, it's green, and here we can actually see this. These are all of my spaceships. I have the 2 spaceships that I created with Liquibase, and then I have my 2 spaceships that I created inside the test right here. Quite cool and quite easy to use actually, and I really think that this Liquibase is awesome. And then you probably ask, how much does it cost? It's probably not free. Yes, it is quite free actually. Let's just see that. Of course, they have something. They need money for their time, of course. So there's something. There's something that can be paid for. Let us just check right here. Pricing. Is there something with pricing? There's nothing with pricing. Pro, yeah, Liquibase Pro and Enterprise. Of course, that's of course people need. No one works for free, right? So then we have Pro right here. There's not a price table. Usually on products like this, then there's a price table. Well, maybe I cannot find it. Let us just try to say here price. But it is free out of the box. You can just use it. So that's a cool thing about it. I can actually not find view editions and pricing. That was. Which Liquibase is right for you? Okay, here they are. So here we have Community Edition. That's the one I'm using. Open source versioning, database changes, and here what does it cost? 5,000 per year. Pro, and then you can get an enterprise version. What is the difference? 10 target minimum, volume pricing available. Work faster and smarter. Okay, has features and support to set your team up for success. Okay, there are probably some extra. Features there. That's okay. For me, that I'm just playing around with funny projects and just playing around with code to see what it does. Then the community version is totally fine for me. Let me know if you have any experience with the Pro or the Enterprise Edition, and then you can maybe write what was the difference, and was it yeah. So thank you very much for watching. That was actually what I wanted to show you. Let me just go back right there. Have a great evening, and I hope to see you again soon. I will make some JPA videos soon. Yeah. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.